whether it be through the OSCP or on the job in the real world, there will be many times as a pen tester, as a hacker, where you'll encounter situations where you simply do not have the solution. What do you do in those situations? What do most people do in those situations? Right? When you're taking the OSCP, even if you prepare as best as you possibly can, by design, there will be moments where you don't exactly know what the answer is. Even though it might be straightforward or seem straightforward, they're going to definitely, by design, make you try harder, right? Make it so that it doesn't work out of the box, and you have to think a little bit outside of that box in order to ultimately get your shells and stuff like that. Certainly in the real world, where things have the intentions of being secure, most of the time exploiting things will not be straightforward. Sometimes you'll be working with technologies that are on the cutting edge, and there's not a lot of publicly known exploits and stuff like that available for it. Now, the footage that I have playing right now in some ways represents the antithesis of that. It used to be the case, but this game is Resident Evil 2 if you're not familiar. What you're watching right now is me doing my run on hardcore, going for an S+ rank, running through the RPD. Now, how does this tie into the topic, right? Well, getting an S+ in this game basically requires that you complete the entire game in 2.5 hours or less for these standard runs here. Now, this game came out in 2019, so it's been out for a pretty long time now. It's been out for over a year, coming on 2 years now, really. And because of that, the way forward to get an S+ is very straightforward. People have figured out how to do this already. They found and they'd field tested the best routes to run in order to most easily get this S+ rank. So it's just a matter of, just following through on tried and true methods. While, of course, there's a bit of a requirement when it comes to your execution, and maybe that's something to work on, but it's pretty straightforward how to achieve your goal here. Now, when the game first came out in 2019, people didn't know the best routes. People didn't know what is the most optimal way to get through the game, what items you should grab, what items you should skip in order to most efficiently and effectively get through the game within that time limit. This, I think, really parallels the issue that we're talking about here, right? With security, with OSCP, right? It's not that straightforward and cookie cutter, right? Certain things you encounter might be simple enough that you just follow through on the process, but certainly on the exam, you're going to encounter a lot of situations for which you simply do not have a solution. So what do you do in such a scenario where you don't have a solution? Well, to tell you a quick story, I also do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the way that my mind works, and I would think that a lot of you guys probably are on the same wavelength here, is that I like to have the answers to things before I do. I like to be as sure as possible that I'm doing things as optimal as possible. But sometimes that can be a trap. Sometimes that can get in our own way, right? If you always wait to be perfect before you start, obviously that's a problem. Like, I don't really have to go into detail explaining why that's bad, right? But, in jiu-jitsu, right, I want to have the answers as well, of course. I want to know, like, okay, if I'm in this position, what should I try to do? Okay, cool, I have side control. Now what should I try to do to get a submission or to get the best advantage from here? Okay, I'm on full mount now. What do I do here? And I'm so new to it, I just don't really know the best solution or the best answer in every situation. And one thing I remember distinctly my jiu-jitsu instructor telling me then was, you won't have the perfect answer for every situation. Sometimes you just need to trust your instincts and try something, right? Try something, try anything. And you will figure out what is the best, response over time. And that's so true. That's how these solutions get developed, right? I didn't come up with this run through the RPD in Resident Evil 2. This was one that I found. But how did that person come up with it? Or maybe he watched someone as well or looked up a guide or whatever. But someone somewhere had to figure this out. In an insecurity, you'll always have both situations, right? There'll be known exploits, things that are already known. You don't have to, for example, if you find Eternal Blue, you don't have to write that exploit from scratch. You just can go on Metasploit or find some exploit online, and you can exploit that and get a shell. You don't have to custom craft the exploit from scratch, right? But at one time you had to, right? When that was cutting edge, when that was a 0 day, and there was no publicly available exploit code, if you wanted to exploit that, you had to be on the cutting edge. You had to figure it out, right? Now, obviously, everything on the OSCP, none of that they don't ask you to exploit 0 days or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, there will be many situations where you don't have a solution, and the best thing that you can do is try anything. And by trying, by doing, that is how you truly learn. Through the power of trial and error. This is how you learn anything, right? Even if you get that guide, right? Even if you find the perfect guide to run you through the RPD in Resident Evil 2, or to pass the OSCP, or to learn how to be amazing at the yo-yo, just to give you a nice variety of examples here, right? No matter what it is, you have to do it, right? You can't expect to read a book on jiu-jitsu or read a book on how to ride a motorcycle and expect to be able to do it effectively, right? No way. It requires a lot of doing it yourself and trial and error. Now, certain things are more translating nicer into watching a guide or reading some material and then being able to replicate it than other things, right? Like if I'm trying to, for example, learn how to be a juggler, reading how to juggle is not going to result in any proficiency with me being able to juggle until I practice it, right? Whereas something like you're seeing here, it was relatively simple to run through this RPD in a good time just knowing the strategy. Of course, there's some execution at play. OSCP, I would say, on the spectrum of that, it kind of lies in the middle because on the one hand, there's a lot of things you can learn from guides. That's why, not to plug my own stuff, but yeah, if you are wanting to get this certification, watch these videos, watch other content creators as well. There's number ones out there, but join my community as well because it's nice to have other people that are working towards the same goals as you and are actively out there going for this stuff. They'll have a lot of insight as well. But, it sits in the middle. OSCP, you can learn quite a lot about how to exploit different services, especially since everything on the OSCP is a known vulnerability and most likely a pretty long-standing known vulnerability, right? You can learn a lot from that, but one thing you got to keep in mind, by design, especially on the exam, the OSCP boxes will be designed to not work outside, right out of the gate, right? They'll require you to, try something. And that is the real point that I wanted to drive home in this video. You gotta keep trying, trial and error, as well as let the guides and stuff be a supplement. But the main thing is you going out there and doing it. And don't be afraid. And I'm as much as I'm preaching this to you, I'm preaching it to myself because, full disclosure, I like to have all the answers as well. I like to not necessarily even have all the answers, but at least have be confident in the path, the general path that I'm following to know that it's optimal. But sometimes you won't even have that much information and you just got to go and I'm not saying don't Google stuff the whole time. For sure, use Google as much as possible, But with that being said, you know, don't think that you have to have the perfect answer for everything, because you won't. And you know, just trust in the process of how people have been learning things from the beginning of time. You look at history, the apprentice system from the medieval era, right? The Middle Ages and all that, medieval ages. That's how people were learning. They were learning through trial and error and apprenticeship. You know, read Mastery by Robert Greene. That's a pretty good book if you're interested in, you know, learning stuff and becoming really effective at stuff. It's a good book I'd recommend. But yeah, certainly that doesn't change with hacking, with pen testing, with OSCP. Apply these things, these universal truths. And yeah, look forward to hearing your successes on the OSCP. So yeah, I hope this video was of value to you. Just an idea that was really, you know, on the forefront of my mind recently when it comes to the sort of mindset of OSCP. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video for more similar content and subscribe as well to be notified. And I will see you guys, as always, in the next video.